The clock said 6:30 p.m. when Sergeant Sophia finally left the military base. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since breakfast. Sophia sighed, running a hand through her curly hair tied into a tight bun. She decided to stop at a nearby restaurant, a place she'd always wanted to try but never had the chance. Epicurean Bliss was just a few blocks from the base. Sophia parked her car and walked to the entrance, admiring the establishment's elegant facade. The soft lights escaping through the windows created a warm and inviting atmosphere. Upon entering, Sophia was greeted by a sophisticated environment. Tables covered in crisp white tablecloths, gleaming silver cutlery, and the soothing sound of classical music filled the space. The delicious smell of freshly prepared food made Sophia's stomach growl even louder. She walked over to the counter, where a young woman with blonde hair was bent over a cell phone, typing frantically. Sophia waited patiently, but after a few minutes of being unnoticed, she gently cleared her throat. "Excuse me," Sophia said, her voice calm and polite. "I would like to make a request, please." The woman, whose badge identified her as Emily, looked up from her phone for a brief moment before returning her attention to the screen. "Just a minute," she murmured, not really looking at Sophia. Sophia frowned but decided to be patient. After all, maybe Emily was sorting out something important related to work. She looked around the restaurant as she waited, noticing that there were only a few other customers, all of whom seemed to be enjoying their meals. 5 minutes passed, and Emily still hadn't put down her cell phone. Sophia started to feel uncomfortable. She looked at her own reflection in the mirror behind the counter, seeing her impeccable military uniform. Was there something about her appearance that was bothering Emily? "Sorry," Sophia tried again, her voice a little firmer this time. "I'd really like to place my order now. I've had a long day and I'm hungry." Emily finally put down her cell phone, but her gaze at Sophia was cold and distant. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone bordering on rude. Sophia, a little surprised by the attitude, politely replied, "I would like to see the menu, please." Emily rolled her eyes and pushed a menu towards Sophia without saying a word. Sophia took it, trying to ignore the growing feeling of discomfort in her stomach. As Sophia perused the menu, the restaurant door opened. A middle-aged man wearing an expensive suit walked in and approached the counter. To Sophia's surprise and dismay, Emily immediately straightened up, a beaming smile appearing on her face. "Good evening, sir," Emily greeted the newcomer enthusiastically. "Welcome to Epicurean Bliss. How may I help you tonight?" Sophia watched the interaction, feeling a mixture of confusion and anger rising within her. The difference in treatment was stark and impossible to ignore. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. The man placed his order quickly and Emily answered it efficiently and courteously, completely ignoring Sophia's presence. When the man walked away to a table, Sophia decided it was time to confront the situation. "Excuse me," Sophia said, her voice firm but controlled. "I've been here for over 10 minutes trying to place an order. May I ask why I was ignored while you promptly responded to that gentleman?" Emily looked at Sophia with barely concealed disdain. "Look, you don't seem like the type of customer who normally frequents this establishment. Maybe you'd feel more comfortable in a different place." The words hit Sophia like a slap. She felt her face heat up, a mix of embarrassment and anger rising inside her. "What exactly do you mean by that?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. Emily shrugged, her gaze cold and calculating. "You know, this is a high-end restaurant. Not everyone can afford the prices here." Sophia gaped for a moment, unable to believe what she was hearing. "Are you judging me by the color of my skin?" she asked in disbelief. "I'm an army sergeant. I serve and protect this country every day. How dare you treat me like this?" The tension in the air was palpable. Other customers began to notice the argument, some casting curious glances toward the counter. Emily, realizing she was attracting unwanted attention, lowered her voice. "Look, it's nothing personal," she said, although her tone suggested otherwise. "But we have a certain clientele here. Do you understand? Maybe you'd better look elsewhere." Sophia felt tears forming in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She squared her shoulders, remembering all the training and challenges she faced to get where she was. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not going anywhere. I have as much right to be here as anyone else. I demand to speak to the manager." Emily laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "I'm the manager, honey, and I'm asking you to leave." At that moment, Sophia noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. A young man who had been sitting at a nearby table had gotten up and was approaching the counter. He was holding a cell phone in his hand, and Sophia realized with a mixture of relief and apprehension that he seemed to be recording the scene. "Excuse me," the young man said, his voice calm but firm. "My name is Floyd, and I am a social influencer. I have been recording this interaction, and I was wondering if you," he addressed Sophia, "would be willing to share your experience with me." Sophia hesitated for a moment, looking from Floyd to Emily, who now looked pale and scared. She thought of everyone else who might have gone through similar situations, silently and without having the chance to defend themselves. "Yes," Sophia finally replied. "I will share my experience." As Floyd began asking questions, Sophia noticed that more customers had approached, many with expressions of sympathy and support. She took a deep breath, preparing to tell her story, hoping that her words could make a difference and help combat the prejudice that still existed in her community. The rest of the night unfolded in a surreal way. Floyd continued recording while Sophia calmly recounted the treatment she had received. Other clients reached out, offering their support and sharing their own experiences with discrimination. Emily, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to apologize, but her words sounded empty and insincere. The restaurant owner was called, and upon being informed about what had happened, he was visibly upset. "Sergeant," he said, addressing Sophia respectfully, "on behalf of Epicurean Bliss, I sincerely apologize for the unacceptable treatment you have received. This is not the standard of service we uphold, and we will take immediate action to correct this situation." Sophia nodded, grateful for the intervention but still shaken by the experience. She looked around at the faces of the other diners, some embarrassed, others supportive, and realized that her night of quiet dining had turned into something much bigger. Floyd, who had finished recording, approached Sophia. "Thank you for your courage in sharing this experience," he said. "With your permission, I would like to post this video on my social media. I think your story needs to be heard." Sophia thought for a moment. She was not a person who sought attention or liked to cause trouble. But I also knew that remaining silent in the face of injustice only perpetuated the cycle of discrimination. "Okay," she agreed finally. "If this can help prevent other people from going through what I went through today, then it's worth it." As Sophia left the restaurant, exhausted but with her head held high, she couldn't imagine the impact that night would have. In the hours and days that followed, Floyd's video would go viral, unleashing a wave of outrage and support that would reach beyond the borders of his small town. Sergeant Sophia, who just wanted a quiet dinner after a long day of work, would find herself at the center of a national debate about racism and discrimination. Her story would touch hearts and minds, inspiring change in difficult but necessary conversations. And as she drove home that night, still hungry but with a new sense of purpose, Sophia reflected on how a moment of injustice could turn into an opportunity for education and change. She knew the next few days would be challenging, but she was ready to face them, just as he had faced so many other obstacles in his life and career. Epicurean Bliss, a restaurant she once admired from afar, would now be remembered not for its food or atmosphere, but as the setting of a pivotal moment in the ongoing fight for equality and respect. And Sophia, unintentionally, would become a symbol of this fight, her voice echoing far beyond the walls of that restaurant. Sophia woke up the next morning to the insistent sound of her phone ringing. She opened her eyes, confused for a moment before remembering the events of the previous night. Her heart beat faster when she picked up her cell phone and saw dozens of notifications and missed calls. "Hello," she answered, her voice still hoarse with sleep. "Sergeant Sophia," an excited voice replied. "This is Floyd, the influencer you met last night at the restaurant." Sophia sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes. "Yes, Floyd, I remember. What happened?" "The video, Sergeant. It exploded on the internet. Millions of views in just a few hours. People are outraged by what happened to you." Sophia was silent for a moment, trying to process the information. She didn't expect her unpleasant experience at the restaurant to draw so much attention. "There are a lot of people wanting to talk to you," Floyd continued. Journalists, activists, even politicians. Are you ready for this? Sophia took a deep breath. She was a soldier, trained to face difficult situations. But that was a completely different battlefield. I don't know, Floyd. I just wanted to have dinner last night. I didn't plan on becoming the center of a media storm. Floyd spoke gently. I understand, Sergeant. But sometimes we don't choose our battles. They choose us. And this one. This is an important battle. Sophia thought about the times she saw others treated unfairly because of the color of their skin. She thought about all the times she herself had to prove her worth, not because of her abilities, but because of prejudices. You're right, she said finally. What should I do? Floyd explained that a local TV station wanted to interview her live that afternoon. Sophia agreed, even though she felt a knot in her stomach. She had faced life and death situations in her work, but the idea of speaking on TV made her nervous. After hanging up, Sophia got up and went to the mirror. She looked at her reflection, seeing not only Sergeant Sophia but also the girl who grew up dreaming of making a difference in the world. You can do it, she said to herself. You are strong. You are brave. You can do this. While preparing for the day, Sophia received a call from her commander. She worried he was mad at her for bringing attention to herself, but to her surprise, he was supportive. We're proud of you, Sergeant, he said. You represented our unit with dignity and courage. Keep it up. Her commander's words gave Sophia the extra strength she needed. She got dressed in her uniform, looked in the mirror one more time, and went out to face the day. The TV station was busy when Sophia arrived. People ran back and forth carrying equipment and talking into their headsets. Floyd was there to greet her, a comforting smile on his face. Ready, he asked. Sophia nodded, even though inside she was shaking. They took her to makeup and then to the set. The bright lights and cameras made her a little dizzy, but she remembered her mission. This wasn't about her. It was about something bigger. The interviewer, a middle-aged woman named Sandra, smiled kindly at Sophia as she sat down. Sergeant Sophia, thank you for being here with us today, Sandra began. Can you tell us in your own words what happened last night at the Epicurean Bliss restaurant? Sophia took a deep breath and began to tell her story. She talked about how she walked into the restaurant hungry after a long day of work. She described how she was ignored by Emily and how she felt when she saw the other customer being served promptly. It was like I was invisible, Sophia said, her voice shaking a little. Like I didn't deserve to be there. Sandra listened attentively, asking occasional questions to clarify points. When Sophia finished talking about her confrontation with Emily and Floyd's intervention, the interviewer leaned forward, her eyes full of compassion. Sergeant Sophia, you serve our country with honor every day. How did it feel to be treated this way in your own country, the country you swore to protect? The question hit Sophia like a punch in the gut. She felt tears forming in her eyes, but she held them back. It was painful, she admitted. I wear this uniform with pride. I risk my life to protect the rights and freedoms of all Americans. To be judged by the color of my skin, to be considered less worthy because of it, is a deep wound. The interview continued, with Sandra asking questions about Sophia's past experiences with racism, her military career, and what she hoped people would learn from her story. I want people to understand that racism still exists, Sophia said, looking directly into the camera. It's not something of the past. It happens every day in ways big and small, and each of us has a responsibility to fight it. When the interview ended, Sophia felt exhausted but also strangely light. It was as if a weight she didn't even know she was carrying had been lifted from her shoulders. Floyd met her backstage, his face beaming with excitement. You were amazing, Sergeant. Social media is exploding. People are sharing your story using hashtags like Justice for Sophia and No to Racism. Sophia smiled weakly, still processing everything that had happened. I hope this makes a difference, she said. Already doing it, Floyd assured him. Look. He showed his phone to Sophia. The screen was full of messages of support, people sharing their own experiences with racism and calls for change. As Sophia was reading the messages, her phone vibrated. It was an email notification. She opened it and saw that it was from the owner of Epicurean Bliss. Dear Sergeant Sophia, I would like to express my sincerest apologies for the unacceptable treatment you received at our establishment. Our employees' behavior goes against everything we stand for as a company. I want you to know that Emily was fired immediately. Additionally, we are implementing a mandatory diversity and inclusion training program for all of our employees. We understand that our actions caused harm not only to you but to the community as a whole. As part of our efforts to make this right, we would like to make a substantial donation to an organization of your choice that works to combat racism. Once again, we apologize and hope you will consider giving us the opportunity to demonstrate our commitment to change. Yours sincerely, Robert Thompson. Owner, Epicurean Bliss. Sophia read the email several times, a whirlwind of emotions running through her. Part of her was pleased that action was being taken. Another part felt sad that Emily had lost her job, even though her actions had been terrible. What are you going to do? Floyd asked, having read the email over Sophia's shoulder. Sophia thought for a moment. I will accept their apology, she said finally. And I'm going to suggest that you donate to a program that offers scholarships to young black men who want to join the military. Floyd smiled. That's amazing, Sergeant. You're turning something negative into something positive. When Sophia finally returned home that night, she was exhausted but full of hope. Her phone kept ringing with messages of support from friends, family, and even strangers who had seen her interview. She sat on her bed, looking at her uniform hanging on the closet door. Sophia always knew that wearing that uniform meant fighting for her country. Now she realized that the fighting didn't just happen on distant battlefields. Sometimes it happened in local restaurants, in TV interviews, in difficult but necessary conversations. Sophia took out her phone and opened her social media. She hesitated for a moment before starting to type. Thank you everyone for your incredible support. What happened to me at Epicurean Bliss is not unique. It happens every day to people who don't have a platform to speak out. Let's use this moment to hear those voices, to learn, and to make real change. Together we can build a world where no one is judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. She posted the message and lay down. Closing your eyes. Tomorrow would be another day, another battle. But tonight, Sophia slept knowing she was making a difference, one step at a time. Sophia woke up early the next morning, her body still tired but her mind alert. She took out her cell phone and was surprised by the number of messages and notifications. It seemed like the whole world wanted to talk to her. While drinking her coffee, Sophia turned on the TV. His heart almost stopped when he saw his face on the screen. The morning news presenter was talking about the incident at the restaurant. The video of Sergeant Sophia being discriminated against at Epicurean Bliss continues to cause outrage across the country, said the presenter. Demonstrations are being organized in front of the restaurant demanding changes. Sophia almost choked on her coffee. Demonstrations? She didn't want to cause trouble for anyone. I just wish people understood how much racism hurt. His phone rang. It was Floyd. Sophia, did you see the news? He asked, his voice excited. People are really moving. They want you to speak at a rally this afternoon. Sophia hesitated. She was not a person who liked attention, but then she remembered how she felt that night at the restaurant. If she could prevent other people from going through this, wouldn't it be worth it? Okay, Floyd, she said finally. I go. Sophia arrived at the demonstration site a few hours later. She was surprised by the number of people. There were hundreds of them, of all colors and ages. Many carried signs with phrases such as "Justice for Sophia" and "No to Racism." When Sophia stepped onto the small makeshift stage, the crowd fell silent. She looked at all those faces facing her and felt a lump in her throat. How had she, a simple sergeant, become the center of all this? Hi guys, she began, her voice shaking a little. My name is Sophia, and, well, I think you already know what happened to me. The crowd murmured in support. Sophia took a deep breath and continued. I didn't come here to complain or seek revenge. I came to ask that we all think about how we treat each other. What happened to me at the restaurant wasn't just about one person being mean. It was about a larger problem that exists in our society. Sophia paused, searching for the right words. Every day I wear this uniform to protect our country, but the enemy isn't always out there. Sometimes the enemy is the prejudice within us, and that's a battle we all need to fight together. The crowd applauded and Sophia felt tears in her eyes. She didn't expect her words to have such an impact. After the speech, many people came to talk to Sophia. An elderly woman hugged her, crying. "Thank you for speaking for all of us," she said. A group of young people asked to take photos with her. "You are our hero," they said. Sophia felt overwhelmed. She never wanted to be a hero. "I just wanted to be treated with respect." As the demonstration continued, Sophia noticed a group of reporters approaching. She recognized one of them as Sandra, the TV interviewer. "Sergeant Sophia," Sandra called, "what do you think of the public's reaction to your case?" Sophia thought for a moment before responding. "I'm humbled by all the support. But most importantly, people are talking about racism. They're recognizing that it's a real problem that affects many people every day." Another reporter raised his hand. "What about the restaurant? Do you think they should be punished?" Sophia shook her head. "This isn't about punishment. It's about education and change. The restaurant owner has already apologized and is taking steps to train his employees. This is a good start." The questions continued, and Sophia answered as best she could. She spoke about her experiences in the army, about how racism affected people from all professions and social classes, and about the importance of teaching children about respect and equality from an early age. When the interview ended, Sophia felt exhausted but also strangely energized. She was making a difference. His words were reaching people. Floyd appeared at his side, smiling. "You were amazing, Sophia. Social media is blowing up. Your story is inspiring people across the country." Sophia smiled back, but then her smile faltered. "Floyd, what if? What if I'm not good enough for this? What if I say something wrong?" Floyd placed his hand on her shoulder. "Sophia, you are more than good enough. You are authentic. That's why people are listening. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be yourself." Floyd's words calmed Sophia. She looked around at all the people who had come to support her and felt a rush of gratitude. That night, back at home, Sophia received an unexpected call. It was Emily, the former employee of the restaurant. "Hi, Sergeant Sophia." Emily's voice sounded nervous. I wanted to apologize for what I did. I was horrible to you, and there's no excuse for that." Sophia was silent for a moment, surprised by the call. "Thanks for calling, Emily," she said finally. "May I ask, why did you act that way?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Honestly, I don't know. I think I grew up hearing bad things about people different from me. I never stopped to question it. But seeing all this reaction, hearing your words, made me realize how wrong I was." Sophia felt a mix of emotions. Anger for what he had been through, but also a pang of compassion for Emily. "Emily, what you did hurt me so much," Sophia said firmly, "but I'm glad you're learning from this. That's how things change, one person at a time." After hanging up, Sophia sat for a long time thinking. She took out her phone and opened her social media. He hesitated for a moment before starting to type. "Today I received an apology from the person who treated me badly at the restaurant. It was a reminder that change is possible. It's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. But if we keep talking, listening, and learning from each other, we can build a better world. A world where no one is judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." She posted the message and lay down, feeling exhausted but hopeful. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but Sophia knew she was not alone. Thousands of people were walking alongside him, all fighting for the same thing, a more just and equal world. As she fell asleep, Sophia thought about all the people who had shared their own stories of discrimination with her over the past few days. She thought of the children who looked at her with admiration, seeing in her an example of strength and courage. And he thought of Emily, who was beginning to question her own beliefs and prejudices. Each of these people represented a small wave of change, and together these waves could turn into a sea of transformation. Sophia fell asleep with a smile on her face, knowing that even if it was just a little, She had helped start this change. The next morning, Sophia woke up with new determination. She knew her journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. But she was ready to face the challenges ahead, not just as an army sergeant, but as a voice for those who for too long have been silenced. As she prepared for another day, Sophia looked at her reflection in the mirror. She saw not just Sergeant Sophia, but a woman who had found her voice and her purpose. A woman who was ready to fight not just for her country, but for a better future for everyone. With one last determined look at her reflection, Sophia stepped out to face the new day, knowing that every step she took was a step towards a more just and equal world. Weeks have passed since the incident at Epicurean Bliss. Sophia's life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. Her face appeared in the news almost every day, and she received invitations to speak at schools, companies, and even Congress. That morning, Sophia was preparing for her most important appointment yet. She had been invited to speak at a national conference on racial equality. As she dressed, putting on her impeccably pressed military uniform, Sophia thought about how her life had transformed. She wasn't just Sergeant Sophia anymore. Now she was a symbol of hope and change for many people. It was a huge responsibility, and sometimes Sophia felt overwhelmed. But then she remembered all the messages she received. He went daily, from people who felt inspired by his courage. Sophia arrived at the conference venue and was greeted by Floyd, who had become a close friend and important ally on her journey. "Ready for the big day?" Floyd asked, smiling. Sophia took a deep breath. "I guess so. I just hope I don't disappoint anyone." Floyd placed his hand on her shoulder. "You won't disappoint, Sophia. Just be yourself. That's what people want to hear." They entered the packed auditorium. Sophia felt her heart speed up when she saw so many people. There were people of all colors, ages, and origins. Everyone was there to hear what she had to say. When it was her turn to speak, Sophia took the stage with her legs shaking. She looked at the crowd and saw eager, hopeful faces. He took a deep breath and began. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sophia, and a few weeks ago I was just an army sergeant who wanted dinner after a long day of work. Today I stand here before you because that dinner never happened. Instead, I found myself in the middle of a storm that exposed a painful truth about our society." Sophia paused, looking at the attentive faces in the audience. Racism is not something of the past. It is not something that only happens in distant places or in extreme situations. It is here, now, in our restaurants, in our schools, in our workplaces. It is in the suspicious looks, in the denied opportunities, in the unspoken words. She continued, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "But what happened to me also showed something beautiful. It showed that there are people willing to stand up against injustice. People like Floyd, who didn't stay silent when he saw something wrong happening. People like you who are here today because you care and want to make a difference." Sophia shared more about her experience, the lessons she had learned, and the changes she had seen happen. He spoke about the importance of education, empathy, and the courage to face one's own prejudices. "We can't change the past," she said, "but we can shape the future. Each of us has the power to make a difference, whether it's standing up to racism when we see it, educating ourselves and others, or simply being kind and respectful to everyone we meet." When Sophia finished her speech, the auditorium erupted in applause. She saw people getting up, some with tears in their eyes. She felt a wave of emotion go through her. Maybe, just maybe, his words would have touched some hearts and minds. After the conference, Sophia was approached by countless people who wanted to share their own stories or simply say thank you. A young girl approached, her eyes shining with admiration. "Sergeant Sophia," she said, "your story inspired me to speak out about the racism I experienced at work. Thank you for giving me courage." Sophia hugged the young woman, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. She had never imagined that her experience could have such a profound impact on other people's lives. Later that day, Sophia received an unexpected call. It was Robert Thompson, the owner of Epicurean Bliss. "Sergeant Sophia," he said, his voice shaking a little, "I watched your talk today. I wanted you to know that your words really touched me. I realize that it's not enough to just apologize or make a donation. We need real, lasting change." Sophia listened intently as Robert explained his new plans. The restaurant was implementing a comprehensive diversity and inclusion training program for all employees. Additionally, they were creating an internship program for young people from marginalized communities, giving them the opportunity to learn about the restaurant business. And there's one more thing, Robert said. We would like to invite you to be the guest of honor at the reopening of Epicurean Bliss. We want to show everyone that we are committed to change. Sophia was silent for a moment, thinking about the offer. Part of her wanted to refuse, remembering the pain she had felt in that place. But another part recognized the symbolic importance of this gesture. I accept, she said finally, but on one condition. I want Emily to be there too. Robert looked surprised. Emily. But she ... she was the cause of all this. Exactly, Sophia explained. And she's also learning and growing. If we want real change, we need to give people a chance to redeem themselves. On the night of its reopening, Sophia arrived at Epicurean Bliss feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. The restaurant was full of people, including many familiar faces from the conference and demonstrations. Emily was there, looking nervous and uncomfortable. When she saw Sophia, she approached hesitantly. Sergeant Sophia, she said softly, I wanted to thank you for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I promise I'm really trying to change. Sophia looked into Emily's eyes and saw sincerity. That's what it's all about, Emily. We're all learning and growing together. Robert gave a short speech, reaffirming the restaurant's commitment to equality and respect. Then, to everyone's surprise, he invited Sophia and Emily to cut the reopening ribbon together. As the two women stood side by side, Sophia felt a surge of emotion. This moment symbolized something bigger than herself, bigger than that restaurant. It was a small step toward healing and reconciliation. After the ribbon was cut and the applause subsided, Sophia found herself sitting at the same table where, weeks before, she had been treated with so much disrespect. But now she was surrounded by friends old and new. Floyd was there, as were many of the supporters she had met along her journey. While enjoying her meal, Sophia reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about the girl she had been, growing up in a world that often made her feel less than because of the color of her skin. He thought of the young woman who joined the army, determined to serve her country despite the challenges. And he thought about the person she had become, a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of hope and change. Sophia knew that the fight against racism was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, more hearts and minds to change. But looking around the table, seeing the smiles and hearing the laughter, she felt a spark of hope. The incident at Epicurean Bliss had been painful, but it had triggered something powerful. It had started important conversations, inspired action, and united people of all backgrounds in a common cause. As the night drew to a close, Sophia stood up to make a toast. All eyes turned to her, waiting for her words. To change, she said, raising her glass. To the courage to face our prejudices, to the strength to forgive, and to the hope of a more just and equal future for all. Glasses clinked, and a murmur of agreement passed through the room. Sophia smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace and purpose. She knew her journey was far from over. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning. But in that moment, in that restaurant that had once been the scene of so much pain, Sophia saw a glimpse of the world she hoped to help create. A world where people were judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. A world of understanding, respect, and equality. And with every word she spoke, every story she shared, and every heart she touched, Sophia knew she was helping to make this world a little more real.